Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Courtney Greedy. She is dedicated to helping women incorporate holistic health in a realistic way. She's worked with hundreds of women to help them feel and look their best. Please enjoy Courtney Greedy. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm here today with Courtney Greedy. She and I met through mutual friends at an essential oils class, and she is, I'm sure, going to chat all about that today. But welcome, Courtney. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and what you do so everyone who's listening knows a little bit more about you?
Yeah, well, I'm Courtney. I grew up in Oklahoma, lived there for decades of my life, and moved to Colorado almost 20 years ago, creeping right up on that 20-year mark, and was always drawn to Colorado, visited here as a child, and just really was always drawn to the beauty and to the connection with nature. I feel like I get a huge dose of creativity anytime I'm in nature and can just see all of creation there and see what it's like to be out in the natural world. And I'm a mother. I have 3 young kids. I have an 11-year-old, 8-year-old, and 2-year-old. So lots of creativity going on in our home all the time with them. They're always creating or destroying something, it seems like. And married my high school sweetheart. And I've also always been drawn to health. Just always really knew that was something that I wanted to live my life as a healthy person, if at all possible. And that's changed and morphed over time. But in the past decade, I've been educating mostly women, but men show up sometimes too, around the area of natural health, using food, using essential oils, using the way we think and the way we live our life to really move the needle on health concerns.
Nice. Yeah, I love the wellness and health components that you bring and have shared with me and so many other people. It's been a great joy to learn new things and incorporate them into my own life and see that you and your family use them every day. And it's not something that's a big challenge or takes a lot of effort, but really is that more cognizant choice of I'm choosing to do things a little bit differently.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're here today to chat about creativity, and you talked a little bit about nature and all creation being creative and having 3 kids and the creativity that goes into that, and they're creating and destroying, and maybe there's some connection with creativity and destruction in there as well. But what does it mean to be creative to you?
To be creative is just, in a nutshell, to create something new, to create maybe something that you've seen someone else do, but you're putting your own spin on it. Because anytime we create anything, it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. I've seen this like in recipes in my own kitchen. Like we probably all had a Pinterest fail or something like that, where it's like, well, I followed the instructions exactly. Why is mine different? Or even if you make something one time and then you try to make it again and you do the same things, but it can just turn out a little bit different. So creativity is also, I think it's following your passion and really figuring out what are you passionate about, and that will lead you to create. If you're following your passion and really walking in that and living that, you're going to create things naturally.
Mm-hmm. How did you find your own passion in this wellness world?
Well, like I said, I've always been drawn to health, and in the past decade, it's been more like natural health, holistic health, and that's really what opened my eyes to creativity. Is I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is a natural health foods, health, holistic health coaching program, and they opened my eyes to the fact that yes, there's this way that we can teach people about health, but we can all bring our own personality into it. And I love how you picked up on what my approach is, that I want it to be realistic for people. And I don't want people to feel like they have to do it perfectly, or that they have to eat kale and quinoa all day, every day, that there's no room for anything fun, because, life without a piece of cake ever, that would be
torture.
Yeah, there is room for that. I had ice cream yesterday. Like, there's room for, especially as we become healthier and become more whole, and more like just being in homeostasis and being in a place of health, you can start to play around with like adding in some things that maybe aren't quote unquote healthy, but really feed your soul. Because if we're not in a good place, it's hard to be creative. Sometimes we can pull ourselves out of a not so good place by being creative. So it's kind of like a cycle to me. But that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's great to just that idea of, creativity ebbs and flows. It's not it's not at a level 100 24/7, and allowing it to ebb and flow and follow it wherever it leads you, I think is an important aspect of creativity as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your earliest memory of being creative or creativity or experiencing creativity?
I'm going to go back to nature with this one. My earliest, in fact, almost all my childhood memories involve being outside, playing with leaves or sticks. So one of my earliest memories, I grew up in Oklahoma, like I said, and Oklahoma, at least our family's version of Oklahoma culture, involved a lot of lakes, a lot of time near water. It can be really hot there in the summer, and just playing on the shore of the lake. And there was one lake that we went to in particular, Lake Texoma. It's right on the Oklahoma-Texas border. And we would go there, and they had this like clay on the edge of the lake, and I would create vases and bowls and bring it to my parents. And I'm sure they were like, "Oh, it's great." But I actually still have one of them from,
oh my gosh,
it's like 35 years old, I imagine. It's very old, but it's just very crude, very handmade. But I remember just losing myself in creativity there. And that's what I love about being creative, working in your passion, is that you can just lose yourself and lose yourself in a positive way. Like, you forget the worries of the world. You forget what's going on around you to some extent, and it can just really feed your soul.
Yeah. It sounds like being able to find what people call flow.
Yes.
Is a big
Flow
part
state.
of creativity for you, letting whatever is going on the day to day kind of fall away and entering into a state of flow where you really do embrace that passion and your ability to navigate new experiences in that flow state.
Yes.
Nice.
That flow state is something I'm always searching for and always aiming for in my day-to-day life. Just want to feel the flow.
Yeah. I too, my early childhood memories are outside. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit different than Oklahoma, but being able to be outside in my mom's garden, I spent a lot of time chatting with plants and playing outside and creating magical worlds. So nature has a big part of creativity in my early childhood memories as well.
Yeah. And the sense of being outside and the sense of the leaves and like just smelling what it's like to be in that.
It's amazing what that sense of that smell sense can recall or help you recall. For me, it's like after it rains, that earth smell reminds me of childhood, reminds me a lot of the Pacific Northwest, where you have 6 months of rain.
Oh, wow.
At once. But being able to have those memories emerge and kind of delight in them when that smell returns.
Yeah.
I find that fun. Nice.
Me too.
So, who these days or what is inspiring you?
I'm inspired by people who are creating good in the world, creating beauty in the world, creating hope. Just people who are stepping out of the day-to-day, just the monotony and all the worries that we have in our world right now. People who can actually inspire us to be better, and people who create beautiful things. I love there's so many things that I love. I love looking at art. I love furniture design. I love, like, there's so much beauty around us. And when people take the time to not just choose something for function, but actually choose it for beauty as well. So I'll give you an example. We just bought a kitchen scale. I was going to start making sourdough bread. And then I looked into it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already like caring for 3 children and caring for my business, caring for myself. I don't want to care for this sourdough starter every day. But my husband loves to bake, and he's definitely the baker in our family. And he decided we needed this kitchen scale. And the one he picked out, I was like, no, we need this turquoise. It was $2 cheaper, and it was beautiful. And it makes me happy every time I see it, instead of just being this thing that looks like a calculator in my kitchen. It's beautiful. It brings beauty. So just the little things around me inspire me. And then, yeah, like I said, just definitely inspired by people who are leading our world in a better direction as far as health and happiness and beauty.
Yeah. And what do you do in your own life to kind of emulate that or work on bringing beauty and joy to your world?
Well, just in my own home, I love plants. I love color. It's springtime right now, so we've got a bunch of little plant starts that are going to go in our garden soon. And just always trying to make I don't feel like design is something that I pour a ton of time into in my own home right now, but I want it to look pleasing, and I want it to be, with 3 kids, it's hard to keep it tidy all the time. But as I get older, I see more and more the beauty in having things tidy, and how my mind is so much calmer when it's a beautiful, clear counter with 1 plant on it, rather than like 1,800 Legos and coloring books and all the things that I'm always decluttering. That's kind of my personal life. And then in my professional life, for the past decade, I've been aiming to help women feel better in their body, both in the way they think of themselves, in the way they care for themselves, and the way they feed themselves. Something that's a huge part of my life. And it's something that I'm going to do forever. I feel like it's my passion and my calling to help women, and definitely usually enjoying this time at home with small children. It's not 100% every day that I'm like, oh, I'm in bliss. There's hard times when you live with small children, or just in life in general. But as they get older, I know more and more time and space is going to open up. And I just am very excited to continue to create recipes and essential oil protocols, and just help people to understand how they can care for themselves in a really nourishing way.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I think it's really important to have people in the world who have that passion, who want to share how to, continue on a wellness journey and continue to love who you are and your body, and make the changes or choices to embrace that in a deeper way.
Yeah. Nice. And so many people think it's so hard and so challenging, and it's just one little step at a time. It's just like everything we do every day is a choice, and we can choose. And yeah, sometimes we do choose to have ice cream at 10 in the morning because it just seems like the right choice, but we can choose to have a small amount, and we can choose to really up our veggie level the rest of the day, just to kind of keep things balanced.
Yeah. Nice. So what is, in the world of creativity, many times people talk about coming up against creative blocks, or you hear writers talk about, I have writer's block. I can't write anything, or painters, no inspiration. So what are some of your creative challenges, or things that challenge your creativity?
I think the biggest one right now, or I'm 100% sure the biggest one right now, is just having the time and space, and the mental energy, just being in that emotional state that I'm just in that flow state where I can flow and really things come top of mind and can just really be creative. But like I kind of mentioned earlier, sometimes when I am feeling blocked, just sitting down and trying to create can open it up. But I do know that writer's block is real, creativity block is real. So some things that have really helped me is going on a walk, being in nature, and just being outside and just kind of stepping out. Like ideally, I would go for a walk alone. That hasn't happened in like a month since we've been at home so much lately. have not been out on my own, which is my own fault. I have a very supportive husband who would be, if I'm like, I'm going alone, no one's coming, but I am enjoying this time with my family as well.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that really helps me is just listening to other people, like other people's podcasts, reading what other people have written, not so much to copy it, but to have a jumping off point. So listening to, let's say I'm trying to get a particular message across about oils or about health. If I listen to someone else speak a similar message, someone who really, I feel, does it in a beautiful way, that every single time will allow me to just crack that creativity open, and then it will start to flow after that.
Yeah, I really like that. I've been doing a lot of my own posting on my Sustaining Creativity Facebook page. And yesterday it was about creativity burnout and how to kind of crush the creativity burnout. And some of the things you're talking about were on that list. So, stepping away, taking a walk, changing your location is one of those ways, but also the, opening yourself up to being inspired by other people, expanding what you're reading or including different ideas to then come back to your own experience of it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Way to crush it.
Yeah. And I feel like cleaning up too. Like if I'm ever like just trying to work and not just feeling really blocked, feeling really depleted or just no inspiration, like, okay, well, maybe today's not the day to work on whatever I was going to work on. I'm just going to spend the time improving my surroundings. And then tomorrow when I sit down, at least that won't be in the way, which I feel like that's a little dangerous because it can totally be procrastination as well.
Right.
But it is helpful to have, at least for me. I know some people can work in chaos, and I can to some extent if I really am feeling like I'm in the creative flow or feeling like there's something that I really have to get done. I can put my blinders on and be like, it's just me and my laptop or me and my whatever I'm working on.
Yeah.
But overall, it's so much more pleasant if things are just not in chaos around you.
That makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate that kind of little mini distraction of like, I'm going to clean this and then come back to it. I don't necessarily do that all the time, but it might be really helpful in those moments of creativity blocks, or if I feel depleted, doing something else can actually free up mental space for us. Doing something that doesn't take a lot of mental effort, like washing dishes or folding laundry or something a little more mundane, can help free up creativity space in our brains, which is fun, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like as you were saying that, I was like, oh, how can we not talk about exercise? At least for me, this is something that I let slide after I had my third child. I really wasn't putting a lot of time and effort into moving my body. And I still don't put a ton of time and effort every single day. Like one of my favorite things to do right now with being home so much is like a 10-minute bar class on YouTube. I have like these 4 that I've been rotating through. And I find that if I do that, and then I sit down to be creative, it just wakes up your whole body, wakes up your senses, wakes up your mind, just clears out the yuck energy and just fills us up with endorphins and strength and power and passion. If you find something that you love to do as far as exercise goes, which I know is key.
Right. Yeah. I forget about that sometimes when I just get up and sit at my computer and don't move my body. And then I realize I've gone all day and I haven't stepped outside at all. And I haven't done anything active except walk downstairs to make tea or get lunch or something like that, and then right back to work. So it's a good reminder that moving your body in whatever way is really important and can also be really helpful in focusing creativity, but also just setting you up for that space of that creative space.
Yeah.
Nice. So I've been asking everyone that I've interviewed a couple of questions, and I think you've talked a little bit about the first one, but what's an everyday issue in your life that you've had to use creativity to solve?
Food, feeding children, getting children to see that vegetables and and quinoa and homemade soups and things like that are actually delicious and make you feel so good. So there's a lot. This is actually one of my favorite things to teach people on, is how to keep your kids open to the idea of healthy foods. It's not that they have to always eat everything on their plate or always eat everything you give them even, but we usually we ask them to at least try a bite of everything. And there's been times where I know that whatever I made didn't turn out quite right. And I don't force them to eat it, but I want them to at least have a bite. Because there's also been so many times when I've sat down and been like, this isn't that amazing to me, but they've gobbled it up. For some reason, they just love it. So I feel like in our culture, in this culture of like convenience foods and back when we weren't under coronavirus quarantine, we had so much more freedom to go out to get food, and they were going to school every day and trading lunches with their friends and things. So it's definitely a challenge to get kids to appreciate food that's good for them in our society right now. So that's taken a lot of creativity, and I find it fun to get them to eat different things.
Do you have any examples of creative ways that you've gotten your children to eat quote unquote healthier foods?
Yeah, so smoothies are a pretty big thing around here. And as I've kind of morphed in my smoothie journey, I used to need like frozen bananas and almond milk, and like it needed to be really, really sweet. And now it's more like really heavy on the celery, heavy on cucumbers, lettuce in there. And my kids will usually eat it. And I've noticed since we've been home and they haven't had so much outside influence on their taste buds, they've been a lot more open to a lot of these things that they turned up their nose on before. And the other thing is like, this is the food, we're eating this. This is what we're having right now. So that's been really helpful. And then also just trying to make the food pretty on their plate. I feel like that helps. And just giving them a little bit of food. Like I don't load my kids' plates up. I want them to go back for seconds. I want them to be like, that wasn't enough. I'd like a little more of this thing that's good for them. That's been really helpful. So like, I'm trying to think of a veggie that they don't really love right now, because we've kind of gotten in the flow where I know what vegetables they like and there's a good amount to choose from. Brussels sprouts, that's a good one that they don't always eat. So Brussels sprouts in a cast iron skillet topped with bacon is actually amazing. You just roast it for an hour or so, like everything just turns into like tasting like bacon. It's so good. But my kids don't have the same opinion as me on that. So I would give them like half a Brussels sprout cut up into small pieces, and that's all that's on their plate. I don't want to give them like 8 Brussels sprouts where they're completely overwhelmed. It's like, oh, look at this little bit. And then we talk about like how they can get creative with the food on their plate, not so much playing with it or making things out of it, but just what does this taste like if I try it alone? What does it taste like if I try it with the little piece of chicken that's on their plate as well? Like what do things taste like in combination? And like maybe they eat a piece of raw Brussels sprout as I'm cooking it. Maybe we make Brussels sprout chips from the little leaves that fall away and they eat that. So it's helping them see that when you're creative with your food, it can actually taste really different. And it's important to find the way that you like to eat the vegetable, because I've had some really bad Brussels sprouts out there. I've made some really bad Brussels sprouts and I've made some that are like, this is amazing. I can't believe this tastes so good.
Yeah. It sounds like allowing kids to experiment a little bit has been beneficial to increasing or shifting their palate a bit.
Yes. Yep. And giving them a level of control around their food as well.
Yeah, that's important, I think, too. But I like the experimenting. I've not heard of people trying that before. So I think for all you parents out there listening, it's an opportunity to experiment a little bit with food and kids, because I know stereotypically kids can be picky eaters, and not everyone, but yeah. Nice.
Yeah. It's just, we have this culture in our country that's just, there's kid food and there's adult food. And this is what kids eat. This is what, like so many times people have said something to me like, my kid would never eat that. Like over and over again, I hear that. And I feel like as a parent, that's putting your child in a box, because if your child, God forbid, were stranded on a desert island and all there was to eat was leaves and like fish they caught, like probably not going to happen, but they would eat it and they would actually enjoy it and love it. So how do we bring a level of that into our own homes? So, I mean, we have chips around occasionally. It's not something we have every day, but I find that when we lean more on the natural foods, that's what we serve, that's what we eat, that's what they eat, because that's what they see as food.
Yeah. Nice. And then what is your secret to creativity?
My secret to creativity, I believe it's kind of what you're doing with this podcast. It's knowing that you are a creative person, knowing that you have creative value to add to the world, and not putting yourself in that box of like, oh, I'm not creative. I mean, I've heard that from many people as well. They're like, I'm not creative. And I'm like, I could name 15 different examples of how I think that person is creative as far as problem solving or literally what they create or whatever it is. I think sometimes people think that they need to do abstract art and dress crazy and like be unorganized and maybe they have this idea of what a creative person looks like and they don't fit that box. So I think it's just having faith that whatever I create is going to bring value to someone at some level, and being willing to share it at some level. I mean, I don't share everything I create, and it's just knowing that you are creative.
Yeah. So it's like you were talking about earlier, that choice. We all have a choice. We can choose to see ourselves as creative beings. We can choose to not see ourselves as creative beings or expressors, and what it takes to make that choice. I think we have strong beliefs, or many people have strong beliefs around who's allowed to be creative and express it. Like you said, they've put themselves in the box of I am not creative. And yet from the outside looking in, you can see just how creative someone is because of how you view the world as a creative space or canvas to show up in. But yeah, I like
Absolutely.
that. So if people are interested in hearing more about the things that you do or how to find you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they can go to my website. It's Glow Family Wellness, GLOW, glowfamilywellness.com. And there's info there on upcoming events and how to contact me. And then I'm also on Facebook. I'm definitely more active on Facebook. I'm on Instagram a little bit right now, but Facebook is a much better way to find me. And that's also Glow Family Wellness. They can find me there as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to chat about creativity and all of the things that you're up to and how you see creativity. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thanks for having me on. It's good talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so like us on Facebook and Instagram. We are Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and your family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your comments, reviews, and questions. Tune in Tuesdays for a new episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.